What's up, everybody? Welcome back to ALLSMITH. Today's guest is someone I've wanted to sit down with for a very long time. He has quietly become one of the most respected voices in the fitness industry by doing something that's surprisingly rare. He tells the truth. With over 20,000 hours of coaching experience, countless articles for the biggest names in fitness, a top-ranked podcast, and a reputation built on humility rather than just hype. He's dedicated his career to helping coaches think better, communicate better, and ultimately serve people better. I'm excited for today's conversation. If you care about longevity, evidence-based coaching, building trust, and creating meaning within fitness, this conversation is going to challenge the way you think. Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Coates. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Bryce. We've definitely had our challenges getting this scheduled, but I'm glad it finally worked out.
Peaks and valleys, very difficult, but you just keep on trucking, man. And I've very much admired the content that you put out, the mindset that you possess. And ironically, you know what really got me going on this was, is his name Dr. Jordan Feigenbaum?
You're probably referring to
Yes.
Dr. Jordan Feigenbaum.
Yep, he and I train
Barbell
at the same gym.
Is that who you're referring to? Yeah. So him and
Yes,
he's an
he does.
absolute weapon. Does he drive in there in his Viper?
Yeah, he's a stud. And he was on your podcast. So he and I chopped it up a little bit around that. And I've always admired the way he trained. And you know how it is. You're at a gym and like you're doing your thing. You're focused on trying to improve. Like I'm usually short on time because I'm running from a podcast, trying to hit a training session, then running to training people. And he stood out to me just because there was character. There was definite like psychology and understanding of what he was executing. And I was like, oh, this guy's different. So we started to chop it up a little bit. Obviously from there you follow each other on social media. Then I saw that you and him connected, and I was like, oh, I've been trying to connect with him for so long. And so he and I chopped it up around that, and I'm pumped that you guys were able to connect because he's a special human.
Yeah. What do we got here? We got ultra strong, loves literal racing cars. He's a medical doctor, one of the smartest minds in evidence-based, the intersection of fitness and medicine. What they're doing at Barbell Medicine, him and Dr. Austin Baraki, who I also just had on, they're great voices in this space. So it was an honor to get him on, man. And it's cool that you got
What's exciting you right now? What are you playing with in your world that's really like when you wake up in the morning, you're like, dang, I want to go execute and play with that?
I'm going to answer this sideways because I think there's this idea that we're supposed to be excited about things. And being excited about stuff's great. I'm excited about the idea at some point of maybe putting together a course for personal trainers, certainly doing a seminar along those lines. I'm excited about, obviously continuing on with the podcast. I'm approaching episode number 500, lifetime across 9 years. I'm excited to write about a lot of the concepts that I think about when it comes to helping fitness professionals. I've been writing on Substack after obviously years of writing for these fitness publications like T Nation and Muscle Fitness. But there's less of that publishing now. I'm excited to train my clients. The podcast, the clients, those are non-negotiables. They're full-time focus, but I don't have the time or the energy to do it all. So the danger is getting excited about too many things can take you off into too many different directions. And the problem's not a lack of excitement about ideas. The problem can usually constraint is execution, doing several of the things really well. And I don't think most people can even do several of the things. Books like Essentialism are the one thing where most people would probably benefit from getting singularly focused on doing the core business thing, the core service thing extremely well, or one extension of it, which I'm a big believer in, long form media, whether it's podcast, writing, to build depth of what you can share with people. Social media, it's fun, it's annoying. I've played the game, I've grown on it. I love the interaction when I get messages and genuine interaction with people. Thinking of something short and pithy to say to get engagement is exhausting and something that I've grown to almost disdain, while understanding the greater mission. And I just don't have the time or interest in getting very deep into, video editing and all these other sort of things to become this viral chasing social media influencer. That sickens me. But I also have to guard against my own narratives about why I don't do things that might actually have some value, just doing them well, presenting evidence, being smart about all this stuff. There's a lot there. But I think to the core of your question, I remain excited about the core things I do every day. I love training clients. I have some clients after this episode. I do enjoy writing when I have great ideas. But oftentimes the idea volume is greater than my capacity to actually do it all. And therefore, sometimes I don't, I've been thinking about this course for a couple of years and I have a lot of notes, but I haven't actually executed on it. And then part of it is as well as recognizing, why am I excited about these things? Why am I doing these things? Is it because I genuinely want to go down this road and all of the hard work that's involved in it? Or is it because I look around at my friends and peers who I cherry pick the examples where they've built this thing and they gain status within the industry because they are viewed as elite coaches across the industry? Do I really need the industry? Do I need to perform for the industry to have their approval? And I had this conversation with my friend Jason Brown, fellow T-Nation writer, not terribly long ago. He's great. And Jason had built this course, his functional conjugate programming course is really good. He's a smart guy, finishing up his PhD, wrote a book last year. He's got an incredible capacity for work. And he built this course, put a lot of work into it, and then he shut it all down because there was stress and conflict in promoting it. And when that's kind of eating at you, and he'll talk a lot about nervous system dysregulation that he's experienced, and he's even been open about his own heart electrical issues. When there's an incongruence between the things you think you're supposed to do for status within the industry, and I think that's an oversimplified lens, but it kind of is, and you got people pulling you in different directions versus what you love and enjoy. You have to kind of question, why am I excited about this idea? So it's a very long-winded thing, but it's something I challenge myself anytime I get new ideas. I'm like, am I doing this for the right reasons? I like the way you described that, man.
It gave us a little peek behind the curtain as to how your mind works a little bit. I can't help but lean into Rick Rubin, who's a famous music producer. You're probably familiar with him a little bit, big beard. And he often talks about, he's phenomenal. He's one of the most talented people within the artistry industry. What I'm hearing in relation to what you're saying and what Jason has said is it's a little bit backwards within strength and conditioning and within fitness and wellness, which is you're almost observing what's market value, what's out there, what's needed. How do I take my skill set and create something that's going to monetize? And then when you create something that's probably very valuable, like Jason's coaching program, something that you're in pursuit of potentially making, then you're like, oh shit, like the value is not the value until I promote it, until I market it. And now it becomes this skill set that's like, hey, I'm not really qualified, maybe is the right word. Maybe it's not the right word. It's like, I didn't go to school for marketing. I didn't go to school for social media management. I went to school to help people. I went to school to understand energy systems and exercise selection. And now you're asking me to sharpen the sword on this skill set in a completely different arena that feels exhausting and fake. And it's just like, when you look at social media, it's one of my biggest struggles is that I genuinely care about people. I don't care that much about faking it on social media. It's part of the reason why I love podcasts and I don't love holding up the phone and talking to it each day, because it feels like a facade. It's like, man, 30 seconds is not enough time for me to say what I really want to say. Now I feel rushed. Now I feel like I can't give you honesty. Now I feel like I have to be performative. And so what I'm hearing is that Rick Rubin said it perfectly. Don't make it for them. Make it for you. This episode is brought to you by ALLSMITH. If you've been listening for a while, you know this is bigger than just workouts. At ALLSMITH, fitness is the vessel. Life is the true mission. We help people upgrade not just their body, but their routines, their mindset, their energy, their confidence, their relationships, and their overall direction. Some people work with us in person through coaching, through accountability, through movement, through community, and through real human connection. Others choose to work with us online from anywhere in the world through customized programming, lifestyle design, habit building, check-ins, support, and a system built around your actual life. Because the goal isn't perfection. The goal is creating a life that feels aligned, resilient, energized, and truly sustainable. If you feel stuck, if you've been putting yourself absolutely last in all the things in your to-do list, if you want support, structure, accountability, and community that genuinely gives a damn, ALLSMITH might be your next step. Movement is the entry point. Your peak expression is the destination. Head over to allsmith.co or shoot me a message on Instagram at @TheRealBryceSmith or shoot a message to our team at ALLSMITHCo, and let's build something beautiful.
So there's a flip to what you just said and what I said that led to this is, and I think through the lens of narratives versus objective truth. Gravity, as we experience it as a concept in physics, is an objective truth. We walk outside, you're not going to float off of the earth. But almost everything else that we think, believe, all the stories we tell ourselves, are constructs of the world that we grew up in, the indoctrination in culture that we experienced growing up. And it's not to say it's necessarily all bad. If you get into James Clear's Atomic Habits and Identity, he does a very good job of talking about that. You can craft an identity through choices and actions, certainly beliefs, and work at it to shape an identity. Then it's much easier to bypass willpower by acting in line with your identity. If you have the identity as someone who is fit, who eats healthy, then those choices are much more in line with your identity. Therefore, it does not fatigue your willpower in the way that we've traditionally thought about willpower fatigue. Whether the evidence bears that out to be true or not, that's kind of irrelevant. But when it comes to fitness professionals, how many fitness professionals will say just what you did there, because you're talking philosophically? Well, I love helping people, but I don't like the media side of stuff. I don't like the marketing side of stuff. That becomes it's a false dichotomy, because a lot of the best people in the industry aren't salesy, aren't misleading, don't lie, don't do any of the things that we might attribute. It's like the caricature of the used car salesman when a young new trainer says, well, I don't like to sell, and just hope that just by being a trainer, people show up your door. When in fact, if you love what you do and believe in what you do, then you 100%. Don't have to sell. It just shines through. You talk to people, listen to people, ask questions, and then people are going to say that this is the person I want to work with. So you kind of bypass any of the salesmanship that we traditionally think of when it comes to sales. So what I often will do is, if somebody has crafted a narrative, even if the narrative is serving you, I still challenge it and question it and go, all right, this is not an objective, unfalsifiable reality. This is a construct in my mind about how I view the world. If it's serving me, great. Sure, be open to the idea. What is it? Strong beliefs loosely held, I think is one of the phrases, where if an identity, if a belief, if a story, if a narrative stops serving you, you be willing to allow yourself to let go of it or change it. And again, in the fitness professional side of stuff, and I don't know if your audience is more fitness professionals or more enthusiasts, but I think this applies to almost anything. You can do a wonderful job of saying, well, the people on social media, well, they're all influencers and they're all unethical and they're all performing for the camera, and that is bad, and I am good, and I am not going to resort to doing any of those things, and therefore I am morally pure and better than those people, while struggling in the business, not achieving goals and ambitions, not getting out there. And you can look at countless examples of smart, ethical, evidence-based, good people in the industry. Jordan Syatt is a wonderful example. He's got over 1 million Instagram followers, genuine human being. He'll play at being controversial in social media posts, but he's not. He's very grounded in good science and empathy. And there's countless examples just like him. I don't think Jordan's ever cut any corners, but I think Jordan is one of the people who decided, and again, he trained Gary Vaynerchuk, right? Gary V, who's obviously one of the leading thinkers, practitioners of social media strategy. And Jordan obviously absorbed lessons from there, but Jordan ultimately leaned in, developed the skill set, became very good at it, clearly did not have any narratives holding him back and saying this is a bad thing. And he's built an incredible life for himself. Now, that's not what everybody wants to do. And for me, I don't want the level of what I feel like is overexposure. This is also a narrative, but I'm aware of it, where you get so public facing and so visible. Figures like Dr. Lane Norton, right? He's one of my favorite all-time people in the industry. Lane has got a very big personality that calls out a lot of rubbish, but that means that a lot of nasty shit comes back his way. And that, to me, is not something I think I want in my life. It's, again, a narrative that I choose to avoid maybe doing the things I would need to do to achieve that. And I think that's what most people do. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm wrong in saying, hey, I don't think my mental health well-being would do well. My emotional regulation would do well, being that ever-present, having the world kind of know my face, and having a legion of people who spend their time trying to attack me online. That doesn't
I like the way you
appeal to me.
describe that. It just shows the different perceptual positions that you have. Your lenses on the world, other people's lenses on the world, your lenses through their eyes, a bird's eye view, or as if we're watching things on a movie. So that way you definitely process, orient yourself, and make the appropriate decisions that set your heart on fire and also allow you to live a beautiful life. Because like you, I like Jordan Syatt, by the way. He puts out some really cool content. Big fan. There's a lot of great leaders out there that do a great job on social media, and I don't knock them by any means. The challenge is a little bit, for me, when people are constantly videoing every last thing and they're not trying to add value, they're trying to add more entertainment. And I think that's an interesting dichotomy to look at that through. And I don't have this all or nothing thinking like all influencers are bad, all coaches are good. It's just an observation, especially being in San Diego. It's a beach town. There's a lot of shirts off. There's a lot of skin showing just because it's beautiful 360 out of 365 days out of the year. And so it's just a notice within the space that I would love for people's intention to be, hey, let's connect, let's play, let's get you in the gym, let's push you on the moments and the days and the seasons where you're able to be pushed, and let's pull you back a little bit. Let's have honest conversations around empathy and compassion and injuries and the peaks and valleys of the human experience. And let's be REAL over REEL. Let's not just make it for entertainment purposes. And if you provide a few videos of entertainment, totally cool. I just want the intentions to be there. And I think it's coming back to that. I mean, I don't know if you feel this within the industry, man, but like IRL is coming back in real life. People want to have these types of conversations. People are craving community. People are craving connection. People are wanting the blockbuster days. They want to go on bike rides. They're seeing run clubs kind of come around again. What are your thoughts on genuine human connection? within the fitness industry that's not comparative culture. It's not judgment. It's just like, hey, I see you and you see me, and let's have this cool conversation and connection. This episode of ALLSMITH is brought to you by our friends over at Kalo and their new smart ring. I've been wearing the Kalo smart ring the past few months, and I love how simple it is. It seamlessly fits within my lifestyle and is not invasive into any elements of my life. It tracks my sleep, my movement, my heart rate, my HRV, my stress, my body temperature, and it gives you real awareness around your lifestyle and how it's impacting your recovery and performance. What makes it perfect for me is simply the versatility. I can wear it while coaching, while training, while working, while sleeping, or just living life, and it quietly collects the data in the background. And the best part is it's under $200 and there's zero subscription. No monthly fees, no gimmicks, just clean, affordable health tech. Head over to kalo.com/allsmith and use code ALLSMITH at checkout to get your discount. You can also find it at select Walmart stores and at walmart.com. Now let's get back to the show.
Like I sometimes do, I sort of try to tease out something within the question, and I'll answer something I think is spiritually being asked in there. What you're referring to is the shift back to analog, from the over-digitization of the world, right? So I'll give a few examples. One, with social media, people say that they want the social media platforms to be the way they used to be. If you go on your Facebook tab, the default setting is the interest-based algorithm. This is now the thing. TikTok proliferated it. YouTube does it extremely well. I'll side quest on YouTube for a second. You will see more videos of things that you've interacted with recently that are not channels you follow than old YouTube channels that you do follow. And that's now true on Instagram. That's true on Facebook. And that is driven by what you interact with. Now, of course, if they feed it to you, because the algorithms are very good at feeding you interesting, sensational, controversial things, polarizing things. Cool. That's human nature. These platforms are engineered and study how to do this. But going back to Facebook, you are given a tab. You can click on it's your friends tab. Now, a lot of people don't even think about this because, again, the default setting is still the interest-based algorithm. You'll see a lot of stuff that you don't follow. How many people will say, well, I want to see my friends. I want to see the accounts I follow, but will never click on that tab? How many people are saying, I want Instagram to be back the way it used to be and not like TikTok, but those same people are voting for their preferences by scrolling the Reels tab for quick dopamine hits, okay? So people will say they want one thing, but their behavior and actions will do something else. That's part one. Part two, I think what we really are getting to now is the over-digitization, this sense that there's an over-proliferation of AI. It is harder to have a real human interaction. Customer service is down in a lot of contexts, sure. Let's use banking as an example. Do you want to go back to lining up at a teller to do basic transactions? No, nobody does. Do you want to be able to get a real human on the phone when you have a more complex concern about your banking? Airline booking is another great example. I don't want to have to go to the airport at the counter and buy a ticket, and I don't even want to have to call in to a travel agent to make arrangements for a trip. I want to be able to go online, book a flight quickly and swiftly. But guess what? I don't want to interact with the AI chatbot when I have a problem. If I need to make a change or some sort of issue, I actually want to be able to get through to an agent really quickly, not wait for an hour, 2 hours for this terrible customer service that airlines have gotten into now. Same is true for the bank. So more and more we're realizing, where do we want these efficiencies that make our lives easier, and where are we self-selecting to real human interaction? And I think with fitness, we get a bit of this too. A lot of people are seeking out real human interaction. They want the coach, they want the accountability. They love that. I think in-person personal training will always be there. I think online coaching was definitely a big bubble, especially during the COVID time, where it went from the average person didn't see online coaching as an option for the everyday person. They didn't even kind of know it existed. It was sort of a niche thing. Started in the fringes of like bodybuilding space, and then some really ahead of their time. Actually, a lot of the old T Nation writers were some of the ones that were doing a good job of building these online coaching businesses one-to-one. And then it got more mainstream. Now, a lot of people were forced to or got a taste of it, but a lot of people opted and went, no, the in-person version works for me. When I say that online coaching is a bubble, it's not that the bubble fully burst. It's just it's probably not going to continue to grow. And what I think we're going to see in the industry is there are more good apps. There are more good AI-based things that will give you excellent nutrition coaching. I mean, one of my sponsors is a nutrition tracking company called Macros First. There are other really good nutrition tracking things. Just to be fair, like Lane Norton is a partner in one. I believe it's called Carbon. There's Macro Factor, which is really popular. Obviously, people use MyFitnessPal, Chronometer, etc. A lot of people are functional enough that can work just as well, if not better, for them than a nutrition coach, a formal nutrition coach, or a dietitian. They're not the same. A lot of people will opt for the coach, and I hope that the people who need the support will. But these apps, especially the ones like the Macros First and the Macro Factor, the ones that are progressively always adding things, are getting better and better and better and better. The training apps. So what we got, Heavy is one of them. RP Strength's hypertrophy app. RP Strength is one of my sponsors. Ladder are doing really good things with the coaching behind that stuff. There are these entities that are brute force throwing money and smart people at and AI and getting a lot of data that are going to make online coaching in various forms exceptionally good, to where it's very inexpensive or borderline free. So coaches are not going to be able to do this very lazy, low effort, high ticket online coaching. I mean, that business model is dead. It's a grift. It's being pushed by the business gurus. It's junk. It is always awful. You see some business coach promising 50K, 60K months. Well, it's a front-loaded thing from some online influencers, never train people in person, who signs up for this overpriced mentorship, gets tricky with the sales process, flashy with social media, pushes out a bunch of sales, the fulfillment's crap, and then all of a sudden there's no renewals. They front-loaded all this money in 1 month, waved it around, look how successful I am, and all of a sudden it's crickets and going, well, what happened to my business, right? That's what that is. Online coaching, you can do a great job with it. It's got to be concierge level. It's got to be high relationship, voice and video messages, like people really trusting that you're there. And I also think that group-based, inexpensive group-based models that do a really over-deliver great job and still high connectivity for people is also going to work. So it's not that there's this, like, people will say what they want. I mean, yes, I guess what Barnes & Noble is doing well, bookstores are kind of coming back again. But you have to be really smart about it. And to your point, original point, I think you have to create a place where people actually, they get to be around other people, community. I would love to see the idea. My father was one of the earliest adopters in owning a movie rental store, VHS. It was back when he was trying to make the decision between Betamax video and VHS. Anybody younger is not going to know what I'm talking about. It's kind of like the original HD DVD versus Blu-ray. And he chose VHS. He was right. And I mean, his business originally in like a rural town in Newfoundland, and a second one in St. John's, Newfoundland. I mean, this is probably originally when he had it would have been as old, if not older, than Blockbuster. Okay. So it goes back to that OG, because he was, ahead of the times on this stuff, and then sold it at its peak. Lucky thing. I'm not convinced that you'd be able to put 10 Blockbusters in a major city anymore. I still think, there is a conversation over, streaming versus having a physical product now, because Sony, this is a part of this conversation. I know I'm wandering wildly, but I think this is relevant. Sony is sort of quietly, not so quietly, came out and said they're no longer going to be shipping physical products of games. And so you have to download your games. And there's a big backlash, and there's geographic jurisdictions actually rattling sabers about maybe even getting legislative about consumer rights, because you can download the game, but if they suspend supporting the game, then Sony, in this particular context, has the ability to delete the game you've paid for and downloaded from your PlayStation without refunding you the money. This is a real concern. This is a concern over streaming rights. There was something, again, with Sony where they had licensed, I don't know, several hundred movies. And I believe, they stopped paying for the licensing rights for those particular movies in a specific jurisdiction. It wasn't all over the world, but people who had purchased, we're not talking like monthly streaming subscription service. We're talking about an actual physical purchase as if they bought it online to download it through Sony of movies that they had licensed. But because Sony had lost the license and access to the movies, those movies were no longer available to people who digitally purchased them. Do you see my point? So it's like, hey, you're not owning this anymore. So this sort of thing is theoretically going to push people back to wanting to own physical products. From what I understand, CDs, music CD purchases are actually starting to rise again because of this concern over music. Vinyl, I have a very big vinyl collection. There's something different about vinyl. It's nostalgic for me. I grew up on it. My dad had lots of records. But vinyl has been a popular thing for a while. So I don't think it's as black and white as it sometimes may seem. I think it's specific to how people want to consume experiences. And if you're wise, if you're in the business side of stuff, and if you're wise to figure out what do people long for and want, what fills them up, and can you create that? And if you're a gym and a gym owner, you have an incredible opportunity to have a space and an experience that gives people the opportunity to be around other people. Because you can't, I shouldn't say this because some of these apps, again, they're fantastic, but I don't think you can recreate fitness experience through an app the way you can from being in a gym community.
I like the way you described that because it's not black or white, like you said. It's not left versus right or high versus low or light and dark. There is nuance in there. And now that there's been exposure therapy to the digital side of things, not having to interact with a person, there's this psychology, especially in fitness and wellness. Oh, I'm going to get fit using this kind of closet fitness technique of purchasing this app, trying to get fit at home or in this, dark corner of the gym. Then I'll sign up for the fitness program or whatever. We've seen that time and time again. But I think there's something different biologically around. You had said something around if you can figure out what people desire, then you can solve that problem. And I think people desire certainty and control. And I think when you zoom out and you look at just natural human behavior, going to a physical location, having the accountability of a coach or a tribe or a mentor or whatever title they may hold will lead to consistency. The compliance then becomes the science. And then as a byproduct, now you're creating momentum by the strategy of simply showing up, right? Like as you mentioned earlier with James Clear, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And systems can be more consistently held when it's not just on an app. That's, $14.99 to then execute X, Y, and Z program design. And nobody's really going to know if you executed it or not, except the algorithm within the app that's like, hey, you completed your workout today, check mark. I think it's inching towards more human behavior again. I think biologically post-COVID, people are realizing the importance of community, human Wi-Fi, being around other people and feeling that energy. Sometimes it's going to push you, sometimes it's going to pull you, sometimes it's just going to be something that you're around. And when you see somebody else working hard, you're like, all right, I think I got a little bit more juice in this orange to squeeze out today. What are your thoughts on this as far as just this component of human Wi-Fi and human behavior and people craving certainty and control?
Okay, couple things. The certainty and control thing, you're right. It's something that people desire. Most of life doesn't provide it.
Yeah, well
So I
said.
think people seek the illusion of it, and oftentimes they'd like the comforting lie versus the unpleasant truth. In many, many things, it's also why, when it comes to fitness or other marketing or messaging, the people who make the more confident, absolute extreme claims, even though they're usually not very evidence-based, tend to get more attention, more following, more support than the people who speak in nuance, which is one of the challenges that we deal with all the time with fitness. But again, fighting against human nature. I don't have a solution. I think the people who are really good, really empathetic, really evidence-based, who are full of doubt and overwhelmed by the messaging from the confident seeming media professionals, it goes back to all the narratives we talked about before. I think part of that is acquiring the skill to speak with confidence. You don't have to lie. You don't have to make false claims. But I think confidence, true confidence, because you know your stuff and you believe in it, will give people more than enough certainty and confidence in their outcome, belief in themselves, that it'll work. But the human Wi-Fi thing, and I like that euphemism, being around people. An example I've experienced, one is I like working out in gyms, commercial style gyms. The gym I contract out of recently moved to a big, beautiful, state-of-the-art commercial style facility after being in a smaller warehouse athletic strength performance space for about a decade. I also have a well-equipped home gym. Right? I've got a glute drive and a pendulum squat, leg press. I've got a lot of stuff down there. I train my clients about 50-50 split between the two spaces. Some prefer one, some prefer the other. When I work out, I haven't worked out a strength workout. I've done air bike cardio stuff in my basement, but I haven't done a strength workout in my home basement gym in a few years. I like going, and I will drive further to go to a gym I can train in. Now, part of it's the equipment selection. I like a lot of machines, a kind of more old school bodybuilding-esque influence on my training. But I realize that I both like being around people, but funny enough, I don't always want to interact with people. I've more recently started, because I've kind of hidden from the world the last few years, just home working all the time. Don't go out. Don't socialize much, which is a big contrast from the way I grew up. But recently I've been saying to myself, all right, once a week, if not more, I got to get out and I got to sit in a restaurant. Now, if I have plans to see friends, which I've been trying to do more and more, great. I have something to look forward to. Awesome. I have close friends getting married this weekend. Can't wait. The following week I'll be at an event, and then I'm going to drop over to see my family in Eastern Canada for 4 days. So there'll be lots of social interaction. But at worst, I'll bring my laptop and headphones, and I'll sit in a restaurant, and I'm around people. I can sort of drown it out, but I'm around people. And it's me getting out in the world. And sometimes it leads to some serendipity. I sat down in Keg Steakhouse, which is really close to the new gym, and enjoyed my meal to myself. But both the server and the manager were members at my gym. So they both interacted. We chatted about that, and then I saw the manager over at the gym. We've chatted a little bit. So it creates this surface area of luck. It's a concept I love thinking about just getting yourself out in the world, create more serendipitous opportunities to interact with people. And it's positive social interaction. It's not as transactional as I think everybody might all of a sudden become a client, but there's more people who know you, think about you positively, etc. Those are people that might turn around one day and go, hey, I need to hire you, or my mom needs a trainer. Are you taking on clients? Right? That stuff's potent. But I found that there's a very noticeable positive experience. I feel better if I get out in the world a little bit more. Even if I'm by myself, sitting in this restaurant, and I'm not trying to people watch the whole time. There's a little bit of observation. I actually like to focus on. I'm very productive in those environments. But there's something really positive, really fulfilling about it, and it makes me feel like I'm not hiding from the world. I think that's the big
takeaway from the observation of isolationism during COVID, is that we are tribal creatures. Even though Liver King kind of got, beat up a little bit based on the falsification of his claims and some of his lies around PEDs, I definitely like the 9 ancestral tenets And I liked that one of them was bonding. And I liked the idea of sitting around a campfire and connection and sharing stories. And even if you are a little bit more introverted, head down, focused on the work at hand, there's something about the energy that you can feel being around other people. And that's what I wanted to tap into next with you, Andrew, is what originally pulled you into coaching? What sort of got you excited to lean into that arena versus any other craft in the world? This episode is supported by ALLSMITH Apparel. And honestly, this isn't just merch. It's a reminder that growth is forged, not found. That discipline is care. That consistency is freedom. That community is medicine. We created ALLSMITH for the people chasing something deeper than just aesthetics. People building businesses, healing, starting over, showing up tired, but showing up anyway. People truly seeking edges. When you wear ALLSMITH, you're not just wearing a logo. You're wearing a mindset, a conversation starter, a flag for people who believe movement, mindset, adversity, and intentional living can help shape a beautiful life. We are ALLSMITHs. Check out our latest apparel drops and our ALLSMITH apparel at allsmith.co. And thank you for helping us build this thing together.
I'm not a typical story. I worked out for a very big chunk of my life at a weight bench when I was in my teens. Was a bit inconsistent in university. Me and an old girlfriend would go to the university gym. I played sports growing up since I was little, cross-country skiing, provincial medalist in that when I was younger. High school basketball, very much like yourself, although you played at a much higher level than I did. Being 6'2" and a power forward with mediocre ball handling skills in a small town of rural Newfoundland did not lead to opportunity to play at a college level. My brother was a better basketball player than I was. But we loved it in high school. It was great. And then once I got out of university, got really serious about the gym. And there was like ebbs and flows in it, but I put on a lot of muscle. I loved it. It really became part of who I was, identity. I eventually moved across the country. I have a Bachelor of Commerce degree. I have worked in banks and the bar business. My family owns a pub, amongst other things. Over the years, I owned a bar, a nightclub for a while. That was wild. That was a lot of fun, a lot of headaches. But I moved across country, then got involved in the casino world as a poker dealer and a poker supervisor. Started lifting at a gym here in Edmonton, Alberta. And then the staff there would just keep asking me to come work there as a trainer. I kept saying no, I had no interest in it. Until finally, certainly fed up with the casino world, I quit it. And I said, okay, well, let's give this a shot. Got certified. It was a good environment initially, a lot of problems later on, but it got me started, got me busy. Fell in love with it. Found good evidence-based resources like reading T Nation very early on in my career. Got into Dr. Lane Norton stuff on nutrition pretty quickly. Dr. Mike Israel and RP Strength stuff. And a lot of the other just smart voices, early practitioners of good nutrition, good evidence-based strength conditioning. I'm repeating myself, forgive me. Got into a lot of fitness podcasts, read a lot of books, just hungry to learn, got busy, stayed busy. And over the years, I fell into a job that became a career that has rewarded me. So therefore it's self-reinforcing. So I dive deeper. Eventually went on my own after 6 years of working at this one company to the gym that I now contract out of. I have my own business. A friend wanted to start a podcast. That's on 9 years. He left after 150 episodes, but he wanted me to carry on. Started writing for my website, which turned into an invitation to write for T Nation, which led to all the other things. I leaned into social media, that grew. And the funny thing is, I think a lot of people chase social media because they think it will fill up their business and help them. I was busy based on word of mouth and referrals and retention over years, locally in person. So the other things, the writing, the podcast, the social media were just, as my friend Jonathan Goodman puts it, deposits with the extra time I had into these things I allowed patiently over a very long period of time to nurture, grow, develop the relevant skill sets, and focus on them. And been rewarded as a result. And then that led to quite a bit of public speaking, a lot of great podcast appearances like this, which further perpetuates this like identifiable brand within the fitness space. But at its heart, I'm still a full-time in-person trainer. The client in front of me is still the most important thing. But I love it. But no, I didn't start out as the 19-year-old, fresh out of school, excited to become a trainer, kind of clueless about life experience. Now I came into it later with a lot of life experience.
And I think it's dope that you understand that all these other things that take time, energy, attention, hosting podcasts, editing, like there's a lot that goes into those deposits that you alluded to, but they're so fun, man. I love being able to connect with people and have awesome conversations. I'm a huge believer that writing fills the gaps within our thinking. So being able to put pen to paper, or I guess now fingers to keyboard, allows thoughts to just kind of transfer and share. And, sometimes they land with people and sometimes they're cathartic and an opportunity to just kind of put something out there. I love that you've spent over 20,000 hours with clients doing the thing. There's the X's and O's of program design and strength and conditioning, and then there's nutrition, and then there's something that I very much appreciate about you is the emphasis on empathy, understanding that people are going to be human first. What's coaching for that many hours on the floor taught you that no certification could?
I got to update the bios that I have in various places online.
Nice,
somewhere north of 27,500 hours at this point, right? 16 years of this. All right. I'm going to go at this sideways and I'll come back to the original question. I train in person because I believe it is more lucrative, more sustainable for the majority of fitness professionals. There are some very top-end outliers who've done very well on the online space. I think there's a lot of struggling online coaches, and I think reliance on social media to feed an online business is a very, very flimsy, fragile business model. Social media is challenging, to say the least. But local word of mouth, being 5 Mile famous, will go a very long way to give you a great livelihood. Let me organize my thoughts. Second thing, the time I get to spend with clients. So some of my clients are among my closest friends. Many of my closest friends started out as clients or along the way spent time as clients. People who have become like family to me started out as clients, continue to be clients. It's all very positive, good for my mental health. It's social. It keeps me on my feet. So I don't want to fall into this narrative about graduating off the gym floor and leaving in-person training. Yeah, sure, there's more elements to my work. My income's more diversified, which I think is a good thing as I've grown. But that also just lets me continue to do the in-person without feeling vulnerable for my livelihood. My livelihood is secure, and that is very good for my emotional well-being, my life, right? It affords me the opportunities to, if I want to travel, go to whatever concert I want, sit in a restaurant, I can do these things without having to worry about the financial cost. I'm investing for my retirement very comfortably. Again, organizing my thoughts. Forgive me. Those are two of the most important things. I'll let you ask me the original question again, so I can bring it back to what
I'm hearing from you, Andrew, is that there's a lot more value outside of just the monetization of in-person coaching that's not always talked about. People are always thinking about, oh, you're just trading time for money. It's like, no. Like it is.
That's a bullshit narrative. The way that it gets weaponized,
and I also think that like being on your feet
in context.
Okay, now let's look at every time you put a kettlebell away, you're getting an extra 20 steps. Okay, let everything above zero compounds. You're getting paid to move. You're getting paid to serve. You're getting paid to connect and actually give a shit about other people's lives and put your stuff into a compartmentalized box for a little bit. And then when it's appropriate, play ping pong. Hey, here's what I'm going through. Here's my experience. Let's talk through this thing. Or because you have so many reps and sets of not just what you've learned in the lab and talked to all these experts that are your friends, but you've also had practical experience of like, hey, I'm going to go experiment on this thing with myself. Now I'm going to take this and have an anecdotal case study with a client and see if this is going to work for them too. It's so awesome to me to consistently play. It reminds me of maintaining a childlike mindset or a white belt mentality of, hey, I'm going to get in the sandbox and I'm going to tinker. And being able to tinker, being able to move, in my opinion, is so valuable. You're like, whoa, I get paid to do this too? And I can take this knowledge and experience and put it into other buckets of writing and seminars and connection and podcast. Wow. Like there's a whole reservoir of doors that can be unlocked based on consistently enrolling yourself in in-person coaching. This episode is brought to you by our friends over at Bubs Naturals. Look, wellness can get noisy. There's tons of conflicting information out there. A million supplements, a million opinions. But what I truly appreciate about Bubs is that they keep things simple. Hydration, collagen, and creatine. Real tools that support real people trying to perform better, recover better, and simply show up better for their life. I use their products consistently, whether it's hydration after training, collagen to support recovery, or creatine for performance, strength, brain health, and longevity. These are staples in my routine. But what I really respect is the mission behind the brand. Bubs truly honors legacy, adventure, service, and living life fully. If you're an athlete, an entrepreneur, a parent, a weekend warrior, or somebody truly trying to feel a little bit more human in your body, give them a look. Use code ALLSMITH to support your wellness, your journey, and support what we're building here with the ALLSMITH podcast. Because feeling better isn't just about vanity, it's about capacity. And capacity changes lives. Make the rest of your life the best of your life.
I remember what I was going to say about the original question, what I've learned from it. I believe there are fitness professionals that think that you can just tell people what to do. Here is a good program. And then study, the technical aspects of programming, the technical aspects of nutrition. I think these things are actually fundamentally essential to a good fitness professional. But they're a starting point, not the end. People don't or rarely blindly comply with you. I think what happens is most trainers end up with what I call a unicorn client somewhat early. The client that does everything you say, does everything right, and gets crazy results. And every trainer initially then thinks, this is the type of client I want to work with. This is who I want to find. And they try to project that out into the world that that's what they're seeking. But those are unicorns. That's not coaching. Coaching is dealing with real people, with real challenges, with resistance, with competing desires and goals, with limited time and limited energy. It is not telling people what to do most of the time. It is getting very good at asking questions and to shut off the desire to tell people what to do. I call it advice mode. The author Michael Bungay-Stainer calls it the advice trap. He's got a book of that same name. His book, The Coaching Habit, is fantastic. It does a wonderful job with this. For anybody, any coaches listening, anybody would benefit from this book. Easy to read. And I think, again, a lot of coaches, especially inexperienced ones, someone says something, and in a consult or whether it's a client, and then immediately it's like, ooh, I have the answer. Let me show you how smart I am. Let me show you how valuable I am. No. Pause. If you know the answer, then can you turn around and start asking questions to get the person in front of you to arrive at that same answer? Because most of the time, with the basics, the people in front of you, they know the answer. They're just struggling to say it to themselves. They're struggling to decide that that's the priority. But if they do, in fact, arrive at the answer based on your questions and a trusting relationship, they're far more likely to decide, I can and I am willing to do this. And that's where you get the better results. As a coach, clients are happier, their experience is better, they refer more, they stay longer. It's all reciprocal. I think it's actually one of the most important things to a good and successful long-term coaching career is to getting great at asking questions and to shutting off that advice mode that we
It's
so
phenomenal
easily want to
advice.
fall into.
It's helped me in my marriage in the sense of like my wife doesn't always want to be fixed. Sometimes like asking that question of like, hey baby, what do you need? Do you want me to listen right now? Do you want me to hold space? Are you asking, what I would do? Are you asking what I think you should do? What do you need right now? And I very much appreciate the way you said that, because you know your body better than I ever will. So being able to listen to your feedback and better understand what you believe your desires and your needs are allows me to meet you where you're at. But then from there, you can potentially get creative. You can hide vegetables in an omelet. You can give them a win for that day. If they were getting their ass kicked at work or something like that, they need a win in the gym. Or, hey, they just closed a bunch of deals. They're thriving in their personal life. All right, let's push them a little bit. Let's see if we can maybe go above the minimal viable dose that we've played with for the last few sessions. So I very much appreciate that mention of just like ask more questions, seek to understand. Don't just be the quote unquote expert that's word vomiting advice.
Curiosity, you said the word earlier. If you approach everything in, for the fitness professionals listening in your career, but any career, you approach with curiosity, and that curiosity is curiosity about other people, which will lead to questions, and it's curiosity about the things that we don't know a lot about. I just had an interview with Christian Thibodeau, an icon of strength and conditioning. He's a friend. He's been on my podcast a bunch of times. One of the smartest minds in that space. He's the face of T-Nation for a long time. And we get into, and the topic on the episode is a bit granular. It is isometrics, overcoming isometrics, eccentrics, cluster sets, and complexes. And the average enthusiast is probably going to find that stuff a little heavy. But Christian is great at and engaging at explaining this stuff, so it'll make it interesting to anybody. But here I am listening, and these are things that I know, but there's gaps, and I underappreciate their utility, and therefore I haven't used as much of this stuff as I could. And I'm excited because I'm learning, because I am curious about this. And you said this earlier about the value of podcasting. That made it more fun.
I think what's great about that is understanding that humans are malleable. We're not fixed. We're never done learning. The research is consistently evolving. People are having new experiences. There's new toys that are coming out. And just being open and willing to be a participant in upgrading the operating system, I think, is one of the key components of making a great coach. Andrew, what do you think is the biggest problem with modern fitness?
I am struggling to think of something off the top of my head, so I am going to talk because I want to hear the sound of words coming out of my mouth. That's a joke. I believe, based on what I've seen in social media, a problem in our industry, this is more industry-centric, there are a lot of, and I'm just going to be kind of uncharitable, useless, unaccomplished, and narcissistic people have realized that if you just get clever at social media, and whether it's saying outrageous things, sometimes they're marketing constructs, they're complete fabrications. The Liver King is a good example of that. He's a marketing construct. There's nothing authentic about the guy. He's a put on. He is equivalent to a WWE character that was made up for the show. Except at least we have this inherent understanding that the WWE characters are, in fact, just that. And in fact, I suspect that he's modeled very much after and looks like a WWE character. This Malibu Max Fit character that recently kind of went super viral for having an IED blowing up in his face that he claimed for 10 years, only to find out that, nope, it was a lie. And he built a 1 million+ following off of a lie because people are pushing him out because he was such an inspirational story because he's walking through grocery store aisles instead of the other narcissistic, grifting, useless people who will pick up a box of breakfast cereal and throw a tantrum about it. He's there, just Mr. Positive Vibes, and people are exhausted by the negativity and the polarization and the combativeness in the Stitch videos. So like, oh, this guy's a breath of fresh air. He's a marketing contract. He's a complete fabrication. Go to my buddy Goob's page, scroll down, you'll see the whole thing. And again, this is an uncharitable view. There are plenty of other examples of this. There's a guy who has been out, his name is Scotty K Fitness. Scotty's been outed for being not a great human being in many, many contexts, despite being this sort of performative guy who would try to say the right things. Turns out, no, treats people terribly. There's a lot of bad stuff there. And, I try to mostly highlight positives in the industry, but I use it because these are very high profile examples of people who have been outed for being literal shitbags. And I think they're illustrative of what I'm talking about. In generations of the past, in order to be famous, you had to have some sort of accomplishment or talent. Now, there's a good argument that a lot of the musicians, pop stars, even some actors in Hollywood, they're all platformed through gatekeepers. Your traditional fitness professionals who are platformed via T Nation or the bodybuilding magazines or some other thing that before social media, you just couldn't become famous without going through the gatekeeper. The record companies decided and polished which musicians they paid for radio play. They paid for MTV, or in Canada here, Much Music airplay, which is what manufactured them. If you guys are familiar with, I know I'm side questing here, but if you're familiar with Alanis Morissette, or Canadian icon songstress, had the big hit, You Ought to Know, this grunge album. Well, I think she's probably authentically talented and a good songwriter, but if you go back a little bit, you want to go to YouTube. She was a bubblegum pop starlet, very Paula Abdul-like in the very late 80s, right? Wow. Before she got famous. Go look at this stuff. And before that, she was on a Canadian television show. She's been an insider. A lot of the Mickey Mouseketeers or whatever. I think some of those kids are genuinely talented, but again, a lot of them are just very manufactured and created. Pantera, the famous groove metal band. Google Pantera glam metal, and you're going to see images of them dressed up looking like Poison or the other 80s hair rockers. There's a major shift in their style. 3 out of the 4 famous grunge bands have their origins in glam-ish cock rock hair metal from the late 80s before Nirvana broke through. The other 3, Pearl Jam's predecessor, Mother Love Bone, the lead singer Andrew Wood. This guy was a cock rocker, if you go back and look at this stuff. And it's not to say that there isn't some authenticity in some of them, but in a lot of these cases, they're actually they're shifting with trends, and they're curated and marketed and constructed by these record companies. So back to my main point. Now with social media, and there's a double-edged sword. There's good for getting good people. We mentioned Jordan Syatt to be very savvy about this stuff, but there's a lot of people who, again, I think are useless, unaccomplished. They don't have any formal education. They don't have any success in business. They are not noteworthy for anything else, but they are good at being loud and getting attention on social media, and that is granting them authority in the eyes of a lot of people. And because that mechanism works, it attracts the most soulless, the most narcissistic, the most useless people, because it's the only way. We see this, and I don't even want to get on this topic, but we see this with socio-political commentators. There's a lot of useless people who just brand themselves, identify around complex socio-political topics. I know failed gym owners who've blown up on social media for grifting on, extremist political stuff. And it's easily identifiable when you know what they're looking for.
Attention is kind of the highest form of currency, at least right now. So people will do big, hairy, audacious things to get the clicks, and then the clicks and the views over the course of time help establish themselves as some sort of thought leader within the industry, which doesn't necessarily prove to be true because they're not putting in the work. They're just very good at marketing and really good at creating and generating attention. I would say, from my observation, one of the biggest challenges that I see within modern fitness is people are mistaking activity for production. I think with the growth and development of CrossFit back in the day, then obviously Hyrox. Now we're seeing Deca Fit. We're seeing World Fitness Project. I could go on and on. You could look at F45. And it's a dual side here in the sense of like, hey, a part of me is like stoked because we're getting people to move. Movement is going to be medicine at the end of the day. However, I just see a lot of people that like they're getting sweaty and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, I have production. I'm like, I want to create education around optimal muscle control, mind-muscle connection, understanding the purpose of certain movement. Otherwise, like you're going to have fun until the song ends, or you're going to develop some sort of tendonitis. And when that energy kind of comes to a plateau, or there's a big period there, will you continue the habit? Because I'm a big fan of just wanting to see people move across a lifespan and wanting to build a beautiful life. So that's just something I've noticed a little bit. When you mentioned a little bit earlier, Andrew, around trends, what are some of the trends that you're observing within the space that are kind of grabbing your attention right now?
It's funny you mention Hyrox and Deca. I've got a client and he's a Hyrox competitor, but he also has been doing some Decas. And I mean, CrossFit's been around for a really long time. And I didn't pay much attention to it. I was sort of more just aware of it, but I wasn't involved in that world. And in this conversation, this is a bit niche. This may not answer your question directly, but I think this also is true of like the smaller segmentation of gyms. I think the boutique gyms kind of got big. It was a bit of a bubble too. But what I think's going on in small places and broadly, people are segmenting more to communities and styles of training that they like. So I'll go back to the CrossFit versus Deca Hyrox example. In that conversation with my client, I realized in that moment, I was like, wait a second. For a long time, CrossFit was presented, it was the juggernaut. It was presented as the only real thing. I think Spartan and Tough Mudder were adjacent to that. They were a little different, but CrossFit was this version of that type of consuming of fitness. Now, I mean, CrossFit's still very much a thing. It's certainly nowhere near its apex. Obviously, a death at the CrossFit Games and some disgrace with obviously Glassman and just other sort of stuff. It's definitely very much down from its peak. Hyrox is very popular. I think Hyrox is more accessible for a lot of people. As I was talking to my client, like there's a little bit less of some of the technical exercise stuff, certainly the Olympic lifting side of stuff, walking on your hands, you name it. And I think CrossFit went from, there's a theory, being very inviting, community-based for a lot of people to, as it grew into this big thing, I think it might have been almost too perceptually elitist to be really accessible to some people based upon some of the aspects of it. That's just my opinion from a very outsider. And then now Deca is a thing. And then there's my friend Tim Riley's Apex that he's been working on to popularize out of Austin, Texas. And I think what's happening is people realize, hey, I can create a more specific curated version of the principles that started with CrossFit, because CrossFit would randomize, for lack of a better word, right? They would change up workouts all the time, whereas Hyrox is it's a very specific prescription that you always repeat. I think Deca is kind of similar in that. And I think that more people are going to say, okay, I'm going to create my version of this. So we get more segmentation, more self-selection to these things. As I'm saying this, I'm thinking Pilates is very popular now. There's probably something here, and I'll approach this with caution because on one side, I think we all agree that we want more people moving. We want more people physically active. We want more people out in spaces where there's some aspect of community. And I think Pilates does that very well. Yoga has done it for a while. And I think sometimes it's the people criticizing Pilates that are probably saying it more than Pilates. But anytime there's messaging coming out of Pilates, there's sort of two pieces of messaging that it kind of sometimes gets criticism for. One is that it's a good enough stimulus for meaningfully building muscle or bone health in particular. No, it's not. It is explicitly not nearly enough of a stimulus to build bone. Okay, you need the kind of magnitude of strength training, resistance training to near failure, relatively heavy loads contextually, probably some jumping, impact, plyometric type stuff, etc., to have a pretty robust stimulus on bone health. And of course, because we're dealing with a women's segment of the population, they're overwhelmingly represented in Pilates. There's some men that do it. They're also the ones that have higher rates of osteoporosis, especially post-menopause. So they're a bit more vulnerable to this stuff. And they're also, it's getting better, but traditionally they're the ones who participate. There's less encouragement of participating in resistance training, certainly historically, and probably a lower rates of sport participation at younger ages. I don't know the exact statistics. I think I'm safe in that assumption. I think it's getting better over time. Peak bone health is formed largely earlier in life with being very physically active. That's the time when you can influence it most, but still resistance training as you get older, very powerful stimulus. And then the second problem that's coming out of Pilates is the messaging around, we're back to long, lean muscles again. This sort of Tracy Anderson, Gwyneth Paltrow's trainer bullshit about 3-pound dumbbells. Don't lift heavy, you're going to get bulky, this sort of shit. And that sort of coincides with, and I will handle this one with grand nuance, the cherry-picked images of certain celebrities appearing to be emaciated and then it being blamed upon Ozempic. So, two thoughts. One, it is wise to be on guard against cultural and societal trends about, especially what the media and the gatekeepers are feeding us about what is in. Okay, caution there, because we had a good period of time where it was Kardashians, asses, and J-Lo, and Salma Hayek, and curves. Great, wonderful. It does seem like, but again, sometimes it's the media, it's the industry itself pushing back that creates the bubble and the hype that make you think this is real. But it does seem like coming out of Hollywood, that thin seems to be it again, right? And that's concerning. Now, flip side up, I don't like cherry picking specific celebrities. We don't know what's going on with them. I think we could probably look at it and go, okay, I'm a little concerned about this individual's appearance, but I also don't like taking images of them and using it as a way to criticize and tear other people down. So there's nuance to a discourse around concern about this trend, whether or not Ozempic or other GLP-1 agonist medications or new generation drugs are behind it. The rhetoric and the likelihood that they're involved in at least some of these cases is, I think, kind of high. And I think it's wise just to be on guard against anybody who's a little on the vulnerable side, young people, young girls especially, who are growing up in an environment with social media the way it is, that wasn't quite the generation you and I grew up in. I think it's tougher, but it still wasn't great. I mean, beauty magazines were photoshopping, editing the supermodels of the era, Kate Moss. And again, caution this, but Kate Moss was sort of used as the example of heroin chic for her time. And I don't have an answer per se. Notice that I'm trying to speak with nuance here, and I'll leave off on this point. I think it's worth watching. And my only hope is that people will continue to realize, unfortunately, there's nothing quite like resistance training for, again, building muscle, the bone health that is going to carry us into independence much later in life. So just approach this stuff with caution.
The picture you painted.
Every dimension I just
As we
mentioned.
look to wrap things up, man, I'm a big believer that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Carry things, push things, pull things, hinge, squat, introduce some monostructural things, burpees, double unders, bikes, rowers, ski erg, stairmaster, running, incline walking. It's pretty simple, but boring seems to be something that doesn't sell very well. I believe that simple wins. I believe that boring allows you to scale. Mastering the mundane is probably one of the most important things that we could implement within this strategy. And not every day is going to feel happy, but you do it because it's a standard that's going to unlock reservoirs of potential and freedom later. And so I truly do believe that consistency changes lives. When you think about this concept of simplicity being the ultimate sophistication, how do we create buy-in in this industry to get people to do the things that we know work, but that don't seemingly have the sexy vision that immediately just grabs people's attention.
You're never going to be able to save everybody. People who are ready or nearly ready will self-select your messaging. It goes back to what I said earlier about narratives. To some degree, you've got to be visible and accessible and appealing, whether it is local word of mouth and your presence in a local community, whether it is some sort of online social media or long form presence where people can actually find you. I think it is worthwhile developing the skills to get better at all of those things, or the things that are most important to you, if you are a fitness professional who is trying to do more. If you get really good at it, who knows, maybe you'll be able to scale that presence to where you influence more people. Like some of the big names that we've said, the Jordan Syeds and the Dr. Lane Nortons of the world. The bad guys, the charlatans, the grifters are never going to go away. And in fact, they're more incentivized than ever to chase status, chase money. There are very lucrative spaces like women's menopausal health, where you have a lot of, there's not all, but most of the menopause doctors are some of the biggest grifters out there. I don't want to go too far down that one, but thankfully the evidence-based crowd is more and more aggressive in highlighting the bullshit that these people get on big podcasts for, say. At the end of the day, I think it is consistency with showing up, getting better at these skills on our end, and it's just trusting and hoping that more people will find us, and that if collectively we do a good job with this stuff, over time, we'll just save and help the people we can.
Totally, man.
That's it. And that's the best way.
I'm so glad we were able to make this happen today, dude. I feel like I could chat with you for another 2 hours. So we'll definitely have to set up a round 2 to kind of go a little bit deeper with our metaphorical shovels, because we both love to navigate things, and it definitely pulls us into different arenas of life. And I really appreciate being able to see and experience your mind a little bit, Andrew. If a coach or an athlete was listening to today's episode, what's one thing you'd want them to remember from today's conversation?
I think there's a lot good here. You drew out some really good discussion. I think if you look at everything through the lens of what is a story that I'm telling myself to reinforce belief and identity, and how can I leverage this to be helpful? Where is it maladaptive? Where could it become maladaptive in future? Where is it holding me back? Where is it keeping me playing small? Where is it protecting me, my ego, and my identity from something that's existentially threatening, but that might actually be good for me? If you look at the world through that lens, you're open to changing beliefs.
That's strong, man. A story that seems to be either serving us or hurting us. Or I guess you could rephrase it and say the number one thing holding most of us back is the story that we tell ourselves. Strong words there, man. Andrew Coates, ladies and gentlemen, where can people find you, man?
Thank you. Instagram is easiest, at Andrew Coates Fitness. I respond to all messages there, so if I've said anything in this episode, if you want me to give you any of the resources that I have, I'll happily share. If you like podcasts, and first of all, for listeners here, if anybody's found this through my media, well, scroll through the other guests on Bryce's show. You might find some of my peers, my friends on here, so you might want to stick around. And then for people who love podcasting and have the capacity, the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast depends on the time of this airing, but I am approaching 500 lifetime episodes. And then if you're more interested in the writing side of stuff, my website, Andrew Coates Fitness, has links to, I don't have a lot of new articles there, anything I've written for any of the well-known publications, but my Substack is where I'm trying to write more fitness-centric, fitness professional-centric things. The podcast, my hope is it's for a broader audience. But just message me if you have thoughts, questions, you would like to connect.
Yeah, today was fun, man. Love what you're doing. Stoked that we were able to chop it up a little bit today, and I can't wait to do it again. You are a leader within the space. Guys, if you haven't done so, follow Andrew Coates Fitness. Check out his podcast. Just this beautiful intersection between evidence, empathy, and real life truth. And so I appreciate you, man. Guys, if you enjoyed my episode with Andrew Coates, please rate, review, subscribe. And as always, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. Till next time.